In this video, I'm going to be talking about what is an intermediate certificate. An intermediate certificate is a certificate that is issued by a root certificate that vouches for another certificate authority called the Intermediate Certificate Authority. Why do intermediate certificates exist? The primary reason intermediate certificates exist is because certificate authorities do not issue end certificates directly off the roots. Why do certificate authorities not issue certificates directly off the roots? The reason certificate authorities do not issue end certificates directly off the roots is because those roots are too valuable and there's just too much risk. To insulate themselves, certificate authorities generally issue what is called an intermediate root. They add layers of security by issuing intermediates and then signing certificates with those. This helps to minimize and compartmentalize damage in the event of a misissuance or security event. Rather than revoke the certificate and literally every certificate that is signed by extension, you revoke the intermediate, which only causes a group of certificates issued off that intermediate certificate to get distrusted. So basically, they have intermediate certificates because if there's a security event with the root certificate, then you have to revoke God knows how many. Could be thousands, could be millions. But if you have an intermediate certificate, if there's a breach or a security event, then the damage is minimized, right? So if you have a security event with your root certificate, then that's the entire ship that goes down. But if you have an intermediate certificate, then that's that's only one compartment. So does only one intermediate certificate exist in a certificate chain? No, there may only be one, but there also may be several. An intermediate certificate is any certificate in the certificate chain that isn't either the root or the end certificate. So that just basically means that if you have a root certificate and it signs the intermediate certificate, that intermediate certificate could sign the end certificate, or it could sign several other intermediate certificates before it gets to the end. So basically, an intermediate certificate is any certificate in between the root and the end, right? And so if you have 10 certificates, one being root, the first one being the root, and number 10 being the end certificate, that means you have 8 intermediate certificates in the middle. What is the difference? What is the difference between a root CA and an intermediate CA? This basically is fairly straightforward. A root CA certificate authority owns one or more trusted roots. That means they have roots in the trusted stores of major browsers. Intermediate certificate authorities and sub-CA certificate authorities issue off that intermediate root. They do not have roots in the browser's trust stores. Instead, their intermediate roots chain back to the trusted third-party root. This is sometimes called cross-signing. So basically, that's the difference. An intermediate certificate and an intermediate certificate authority is not as trusted as a root certificate and a root certificate authority.